Welcome to Transformations, interviewing people changing our world. I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver, and as you've noticed, everybody I interview is very different one from the other, but what they have in common is a passion and a commitment. And I want you to remember, all it takes is one person, one decision, one commitment, and you've got a world changer. And maybe one day I'll be interviewing you. So today's guest is important to all of us, and it's because, and not just that he's a good guy, and he is, but it's because of where his attention is, and he's focused on water. And we have found that many municipalities have water that is not safe to drink, and most of us are drinking bottled water of varying degrees of safety. So Sedylmayre takes water seriously, and his concern created something called Divinia Water. And to tell you a little about, he's going to tell you the real deal, but just in a quick look at it, Divinia Water has been tested by many laboratories, and they have found that it has 0 contaminants in it. So it's 0 per parts per million of contaminants, 0. So this is a very important water source for all of us. But I'm going to let the man who invented this and has brought it to fruition tell you about it. So please help me welcome Sedylmayre, inventor of Divinia Water. Welcome, Stephen.
Welcome. Thank you, Diane, for having me on your podcast.
Well, you're doing something that's critical to everybody, and not just everybody, everything, every plant, every animal, everything needs water. So I read that you have 20 patents under your belt and you've had 5 companies. What made you turn your attention to water?
My wife was buying water out of bottles, and especially when we went to a restaurant. And I didn't see much difference between the water that she was buying or a glass of water that was on the table, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
And when I first looked at it, I had found out that most bottled water at that time, 60 to 70%, was just tap water that had been put into bottles, into plastic bottles. And we were paying 4 to 5 times the amount for it. And I thought, there's no rhyme or reason to this whatsoever. And I understood she wanted better water. So I started looking around and found a distiller that had been used for multi-purposes, one for car dealerships to give a good experience when you sat in the room. And they had found it from someone who used it for hospitals for patients. So I thought I'd purchase this distiller and give her good water, except it broke down over the period of 3 years, probably 30 to 40 times. One time when they fixed it, by the time the guy got to the end of our driveway, it was broken again. So I decided that since I had been an inventor and I had other patents under my belt, that I could invent something that was better than what they were supplying us. And basically most distillers are the same thing as your hot water heater at home. And we all know the problem with the hot water heaters at home, they break down. They don't really do anything, they just heat the water up. And so the distillers had some metal in it, the metal decays, and of course you're drinking what decays, and it doesn't really do much filtering for you. So I decided I could invent something much better than that, and that was the process that I came up with it. It surprised me a little bit because this water that we had invented, or the water that was out of the process that we invented, was a much different water. And back then, 13 years ago, I was kind of skeptical about water. I was like everyone else, water is water. You know, it can't really cure you or help you, but maybe if you aren't drinking diseased water, that'll give you a better chance. And of course, that's very true. If you don't drink diseased water, your body is allowed to heal itself because you aren't continually feeding it poison. And I think probably in the United States, 98 or 99% of the people in the United States continually, day after day, drink poisoned water. And when I say poisoned water, it's because of all the process that goes, the manufacturing processes that just dump contaminants into the streams and the lakes and everything else. And now that, again, Trump has destroyed the Clean Water Act, they're allowed to dump whatever they want to into the water again. And so I started studying water and found out that even what I believed in it was totally incorrect. That the fallacy that I believe that 98% of the other Americans believe, that water is not true. Water, of course, is the basis of all life. There would be no life here on this planet without the water that we've had and the cycle of water. So it took me down a whole rabbit hole of trying to understand what water was. And we found out that not only water, if you don't drink contaminated water, you're giving yourself a much better chance. And on top of it, that if you drink a healthy water, a water that's functional, that can do things, it actually will help return your body back to normal again. There's an old joke I like to, and it's not really a joke, but I like to use, is the guy walks into a doctor's office and said, "Doctor, it really hurts my head when I hit my head against the wall. What can you tell me to do to help me?" And the doctor looks at him and says, "Stop." And the guy says, "Well, you don't understand. You know, I bang my head against the wall and it really hurts and it gets bloody. And you got to prescribe me something to make that stop." And the doctor looks at him and says, "Just stop hitting your head against the wall." And the guy says, "Well, you don't understand, doctor." And the doctor says, "I do understand. Just stop it." Well, that's what I tell people about drinking water. Stop drinking contaminated water.
But people don't know that. You know, that's the thing. You knew something that most people don't know, and there's a lot of propaganda out there that doesn't even let us know about this.
Well, and now if people really, and the internet is so prevalent now,
yeah,
if people got on, they would start looking at the studies that are valid studies that are done. Here's one right here. I don't know if you can see it. Arctic study shows, let's see if we can get that.
Yeah, put it up where your head is, and then it will be in the right place.
Can you see it there at all?
Not well, but
Okay. So
why don't you tell us what it is?
The article says, Arctic study shows that microplastics are polluting much more than our water. And this has been in the news now for the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Is every source of water that we have now that we drink is polluted with plastics.
Yes.
Microplastics.
Yep.
And now there are articles that are coming out that shows the microplastics destroys our stomach microbiomes. So what that means is that whatever you drink, and of course what you drink is also what plants drink, what animals drink, you know, so the whole food supply chain, anything you put in your mouth is contaminated with microplastics. Those microplastics are destroying your stomach. And so that's why we're getting all these rash of terrible problems that we can't get rid of anymore. People are chronically overweight, and I don't blame the people. I blame the suppliers of the food and the polluters of the water that are doing it. We don't have a choice anymore. Yes, fast food is not good for you, but the concept of fast food is that they're using wheat that's been genetically modified. Now the wheat has plastics in it. It's grown with Roundup. They splice Roundup into all the wheat that we have. So you're basically eating Roundup when you eat bread anymore. The cows are, of course, full of hormones. They're full of microplastics now. All the vegetables that you eat are genetically modified. They aren't original. So we're being fed poison all the time. And we have to go out of our way to stop that. And we have to do things like try to buy non-genetically modified food.
You know, organic food is obviously the only way to go now.
It's the only way to go. And thank goodness there are stores that are starting to be responsible. Walmart itself has a whole, although it's not big enough, organic. We have a food chain here called Brolem's, and Brolem's has now a whole section of vegetables, all the vegetables you could want, non-GMO, and they're beautiful. They're nice, big, beautiful, you know, and so there are, Albertsons is doing it, Safeway is doing it. Some of these companies are starting to be socially responsible.
It's interesting that the changes are coming from business. They are not coming from government. And if you'll notice that, I mean, even car manufacturers have agreed to lower carbon emissions. The food is getting safe because companies are doing it, not our government. And I think that's the wave of the future.
You cannot count on our government for anything.
Yep.
And it's particularly this particular regime that we have in right now. They're trying to make everything good for the businessman and not for the individual consumer. So what they want to do is have the businessman be able to sell any crap they want to and not protect the consumer. However, thank God these businesses are now being socially responsible. As you just said, there are many, many people. California, even though they destroyed the environmental laws for air across the rest of the United States, California has been responsible, and because they are, and they sell 1/10 of the cars in the United States, that's forced all the other states to be responsible too. Yep. You know, we all know that cars could get much better gas mileage than they get. We all know that they can make a car that gets 55 to 100 miles per gallon. They're out there right now. Toyota sells them. They're 55 miles to the gallon. You know, they're wonderful. There's other companies that sell them 70 miles to the gallon. You know, yeah, they don't have the big V8 engine and they don't make a lot of noise when they go down the street and they don't sit 4 feet up in the air, but they're socially responsible and people are turning to them. And what we have got to understand, what we do now affects, and you met my granddaughter, affects our children and our grandchildren.
That's why all the youngsters are out there with the climate change, like Greta Thunberg. And I interviewed Jamie Margolin from 0 Hour. She started the climate strikes last year. She was 16. This year she's 17, and she was in part of that. So and what they're saying is, we're bringing it to your attention, but you're the adults. You're the ones that need to change it. So we need to get a grip as adults here.
Yeah, and that's right. Thank God for the millennials. As much problems as you have with millennials because of the cultural difference between our generation and their generation, thank God they're trying to do something. They're you know, my generation, which is probably close to yours, was, you know, make love, not war, and we fought the establishment. Except after everybody graduated, they joined the establishment.
Yeah.
And they sold out. As much, you know, we marched, we tried to stop the Vietnam War era. We did everything, we pointed everything out. And then back in my era, you were supposed to be married by 21, in a company, working and settling down. And you kind of wanted that more than fighting the establishment anymore. Yeah. And so we all settled. We all said, okay, we know this is going on, but we're going to accept it because we want the money. And now these generations are coming up and are, thank God, are saying it's not right. And of course, I've worked for some big companies, but I quit working for them when I was in my 20s and kind of fought the establishment all the way along. I'm one of the forefathers of flat screen TVs. And when they used to make these big CRTs that weighed 800 pounds and you had to lug them around and you couldn't sit next to them because the x-rays would get you and stuff like that. I said, that isn't right. There's a better way. And for 20 years, I fought that and finally helped get America off of, the CRT onto these flat screen TVs, which are lighter, less polluting, less problems with the environment. And then I moved into this water where I'm fighting with the water now. But most people are concerned about their job, their house, that sort of stuff. And they're willing to trade off what they're told to do. Because the paycheck means everything. I mean, that paycheck means everything. And we were also taught, and we knew it wasn't correct, that the government was going to take care of you. Government is not going to take care of you. The government doesn't care. The government is an institution that all it wants to do is keep itself going. That's it.
And that's changed. I mean, I think that earlier on, we did have presidents that had some consciousness and that were willing to serve, but things have shifted. So
yeah, it's
then we have to shift. Then we
have to. But if you want to be healthy, you got to take it on yourself.
Correct.
If you want to be politically active, you've got to do it yourself. If you want honesty and integrity, you got to do it yourself. Period. No one's going to do it for you. No one's going to be your advocate. That's not going to happen. And I think that's what the millennials found out in Generation X. And they're active. Like I told you, there's microplastics in all our water. 160 million Americans right now are drinking radioactive water.
Wow.
Radioactive water. And they know it. There was a town down in Texas of 150,000 people that their government knew, the local government knew that for 10 years that water was radioactive and causing cancer. And they never told the public. They never let it get out because it would have cost them X number of dollars to fix it. When I lived in Phoenix, I was one of the people that yelled about arsenic in our water, and we knew that there was arsenic in the water, and it was 40 times above the EPA standard that caused cancer.
Wow.
40 times.
Wow.
And eventually they had to put in a $40 million processing plant to take it out, and the government wasn't happy about that. A lot of people weren't happy about that because they had to raise their taxes. But America, wake up. You get what you pay for. And pay for, if your local community or whatever needs something done, ante up to it and get it done. This is America. This is your America. This is your damn towns. Stand up for it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think what's happened is people fell asleep and they felt powerless. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing, because I'm trying to help people to see that there are people who are standing up, who are doing something, and it does make a difference. But one of the things we need to do seriously now is start empowering people, having people understand that you can stand up. There's a cartoon that was in Facebook today, and it shows a whole bunch of people being held up by one man with a gun. And then the people bow down. And then one man stands up. And then as that man steps, then more stand up. And pretty soon the person with a gun is bowing down. So once we begin to take our power and to make choices and to do things that need to get done, then other people will join in. but it's getting out of this feeling of powerlessness. I mean, that's the thing that has to happen. So
yeah, it takes one guy to stand up.
absolutely, absolutely.
One person.
So let me ask you, is there some way that Divinia's system could be used like at Flint or some municipality that has poisoned water?
Oh yeah, I've had people from Flint ask me, and we did analysis for them, and we could have put in a system that would have helped all the people in Flint, that would have helped eradicate a lot of the problems that they had after they were poisoned in the first place. And we could have done it for about $60 million cheaper than what they advocated to do themselves. And of course, there's politics, there's big water companies, Nestle's, you know, stuff like that. And of course, the government went the opposite direction. Yes, we could. We've even designed these things so that they fit in shipping containers, and eventually we want to be able to ship them to different cities and be able to use it. Now, I just want people to wake up and know that the water they're drinking, the Cokes they're drinking, the soft drinks they're drinking, everything else is polluted. And they need to know that they're making a conscious choice to kill themselves, kill their children, and kill their grandchildren. And they are. And there's no excuse for it anymore.
People don't understand. It's like there's kind of a sleep thing that's going on, and they don't, and it's things that are so terrible, they just, you know, go out. What, as you were talking about Flint, what I thought, this went through my mind, is there some municipality that would be open to what you have, so that you have the demonstration of putting it in a city where people are amenable to it, and then other people can see. And sometimes it takes something like that, and I don't know who or where, but it's like, it's got to happen. We cannot continue.
It's going to happen. We have a lot of people that are starting to advocate it now, and unfortunately it's from the top down. I would have liked to have it from the bottom up.
Yeah.
But it's from the top down. And they're starting to see some of their idols, some of their stars starting to do it. And that influences them, and they start and wake up saying, well, if they're doing it, why shouldn't we be doing it? And right now it's a lot of word of mouth. People are starting to wake up. People are starting to for instance, you know about fluoride.
Yes.
And fluoride is a poison.
Sure.
If people, I'll tell you one thing, go read your toothpaste, and it tells you not to swallow your toothpaste because it's a poison. Yeah. You're brushing your teeth with poison, and they tell you not to swallow it. And yet you continually do it because people tell you, the doctors tell you that have been bought off, that it's okay to do it. We're facing the same situation the cigarettes were right now with water.
Yeah.
How many years did people testify in front of Congress and lie and lie and lie about how good cigarettes were for you? They used to tell you, if you're stressed, go smoke a pack of cigarettes and that'll help you. Smoke a pack of cigarettes.
It will kill you. They won't have any worries. You know?
Yeah. So we're facing the same problem that we did with cigarettes right now. And eventually people woke up and they understood that. We're in that same situation. That plastic bottle that people drink water out of have plastics in it. Some of them have 1,000 parts of plastic in it. You're drinking plastic. They now found out that the average person in the United States actually eats the equivalent of 1 credit card a week in plastic.
Jeez.
So people, instead of using your credit cards, just take it out and eat it. You know, you'll save yourself a lot of money that way. But that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're eating the equivalent of 1 credit card of plastic per week now in the United States.
One of the things that has struck me, and this is reinforcing it, is that somehow as a culture, we have focused on money, and that has become the most important thing. And we've stopped acting responsibly. We've stopped caring for other people. We've stopped caring for the planet because everything was about money. And usually that means that people are working for somebody else, helping somebody else accrue a lot of money, billions and sometimes trillions of dollars. And we've lost our way. Just as a human race, we've lost our way. And the things that you're talking about are so critical now. And it points to the fact that we have to start thinking critically again. We have to start being willing to see what is. So what are your thoughts on all of that?
Oh, I totally agree with you. We've given our hearts and souls over to the big corporations. You know, before, these large corporations would have been broken up. You know, IBM
antitrust.
broken up. Yeah, but now we have, look, Microsoft, we have Amazon, we have Facebook. Facebook tells us how to eat, drink, sleep, smoke, who we should vote for. All these establishments, of course, they're now susceptible to being manipulated and hacked, because the Russians hacked our last, election.
Yeah.
So what we've done is we've given power to these large corporations by voting with our money. And you vote with your money. Every time you go into a grocery store and you buy a GMO product over a non-GMO product, you're voting with your money. Every time you go in, you buy 48 plastic bottles for $2.95. You're voting for that water that is not healthy water. You're actually voting for it. You're advocating for it. And so people have to wake up and get conscious again. Unfortunately, religion in the United States is going down. The religion of money is going up. We all want a nice, safe home, so we're willing to turn over our security to people who will do that for us. We're so afraid of the Hispanics, the Mexicans coming across the border, that we're willing to build a Great Wall of China. We're willing to build the Western Berlin Wall. We're willing to act like Hitler did, because we're afraid of these. And, it's ridiculous. The media will blow up a story of one story that happens to somebody that's totally out of proportion.
Yeah.
Maybe it's 1 out of 10 trillion that happens, but everybody gets scared because of that one instance. And they act like sheep. We got to quit acting like sheep. People have to act like individuals again. And I'm talking about, they have to be nice to other people. You can't see them as a Mexican or Chinese or Vietnamese or any race you want to mention. We got to see them as an individual. And we should see, even in government, if you're a government employee, that person that's there trying to get your help, you need to see as an individual, just like you, just like your brother, just like your sister. And we're so willing to put people into these boxes and confine them and say, this is what these people are. We've got to stop this. This country is now more divided than I've ever seen. I'm 70 years old, and I've never seen this country as divided as it is before. And we've just got to stop that. We've got to stop poisoning our water. We've got to stop poisoning our food. And we've got to treat people with respect again. If we don't, this country's doomed. We might as well split it up.
The big poison is we're poisoning our minds. And as you were talking, it struck me that universities used to teach critical thinking. It wasn't about getting dates right. It was about critical thinking. And then universities became places where you got a degree in order to get a good job. And that's kind of what they've become. So we need to begin thinking critically, because a lot of what's going on is people accepting things without thinking them through, without testing them out to be true. So a lot of what you're saying comes from that kind of thing. When we stop thinking for ourselves, when we begin to think in slogans or stereotypes, we're done. And that's kind of, I think, here's the other thing. I wanted to get your take on this. I think things are so bad now because until things get really, really bad, people could just forget it. Now things are so bad, people have to pay attention. And sometimes that's the beginning of the change. And I think we're right at the crossroads. What are your thoughts on that?
I totally agree with you. People won't change personally or business-wise until things get very, very bad, till you feel you're at the bottom. And then it kind of like your brain turns on again. Until then, you're just kind of numb. And I find this all the time with this water. People go, well, why would I want to spend, and our water is more expensive than others, why would I want to spend more money on your water when I can go to my tap water? Well, as you mentioned, we've got nothing in it. And the water you're drinking has arsenic in it, has plutonium in it, has uranium in it, chromium-6, all these things that cause cancer. And you don't understand that, what you drink and eat, if you're our age, you're not going to have children. But if you're younger, you're going to have children, and you pass that on to your children. And those children pass it on. So we're contaminating down second and third and fourth generations. The other things that I'm telling you that's in this water is also affecting your thinking and your brain. Fluoridation is a great dope of the world. The Nazis fed it to the Jewish people to try to keep them in the gulags so they would just do what they were told. They were automatons. And people that drink this fluoridated water, use their fluoridated toothpaste, it kind of shuts off your critical thinking. And at some point, as you say, people have to hit a low to again turn on their brain to start thinking. We need to start thinking in critical thinking, and just about not about us, not about which car we're going to do, what clothes should you wear because you fit in with everyone else. Let's start thinking about other people and how we affect other people and what our actions do for other people. That's why we're fighting this water, why we do what we do, because we're trying to help other people. We've helped people from children from 4 years old to adults that were 99 years old. We have helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people that were in pain, that had health problems, returned back to normal again.
Wow.
And that's our purpose. That's why my family's involved in this. It's not an easy path. It's a very painful path. You have a lot of slings and arrows thrown at you every day. You have a lot of people accuse you of everything underneath the sun to either stop your business or just out of pure hate. But we get up every morning, we do what we do because we know we're helping other people. And that's what America's got to return to, is people helping other people. That's what this thing was founded on. That's what the country was founded on. That's what our forefathers wanted. People helping other people. They joined together because of the tea problems that they had, and because George was over in England running this country over here, and we wanted local representation. And luckily, a lot of the towns, the small towns, are starting to try to take that back. People are starting to get more involved. We don't need professional politicians. We need the average Joe to stand up for himself and for his neighbors and for the people that are in that community, trying to help other people. You know, we don't need politicians that are being lobbied because they get $50,000 by a big corporation to say one way or another. We need that local small guy who has a conscience, who wants to try to help his community. That's what we need. We need people to stand up for themselves. We need the people to say, stop drinking polluted water, stop drinking polluted food. You know, just stop on it.
No, I mean, it's so true. And again, I think it's about consciousness. I think people get sidetracked and they're watching whatever else is going on in their life and not understanding that food and water that's the basis. That's what makes up who we are.
Yeah.
So
Even how you think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even how you think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So take us on the journey. You've been on quite a journey, and I was really upset to hear that people are attacking you guys. What's up with that? And so take us on the journey from the idea of it to what it became, and now it's a real business, because I was looking at some of the things that gave your business statistics and stuff. So take us on that journey so people understand that it takes something sometimes. You have to hang in there sometimes to make something happen.
Well, when we first started this, it was back in 2013, and I was retired, so we were using our money to start to try to develop this. And it started out with just one of my machines that we had made, and so the water was behaving different than other water. And I wanted to try and find out why it was different. So we spent all our personal money. We traveled to different universities, had them look at it. Even though they paid for the studies themselves, we didn't pay for it. We had to pay for the transportation back and forth for the machine so they could study it, and you know, all these different consequential expenses. And 2018, 2019 hit, and we filed bankruptcy because our house had dropped several $1 million in value, and we lost everything. And so we decided, do we try to keep living the lifestyle we were, or are we going to protect this particular device? We decided we were going to protect the device. My daughter was in school, in college, so was my son. My son dropped out of college to help us, moved with us. I could no longer afford to pay for my daughter's college, so she had to get loans, student loans, which she still has. And she continued in school, but she had to get her a job while she went to school to pay for her school. And we packed everything up, lost everything, lost every piece of thing we had, our house, our cars, everything. And so we packed up into a U-Haul and hit the road. And we had thought we had licensed this to somebody that was going to use it for children in burn hospitals. And it turned out that he was really a scam artist. He had raised $16 million on the side, and he was using it to bid on horses and horse racing and buy horses. And of course, we didn't see that money. We saw about $4,000 a month for a couple months, and that stopped. So we were on the road, ran out of money, and ended up in Idaho with no money. I mean, zero, absolutely zero. And so we lived out of the U-Haul for a couple of days. And then I met a niece up here, and we moved in with my niece. And she had a double wide trailer. So we had 10 people living out of the double wide trailer. And I believe we also had 10 dogs at the time, not us, but them and us combined. So there were 10 dogs and 10 people living out of a double wide trailer. And only 2 of the people had jobs. The other 8 people didn't, my family. So eventually we got some jobs and got enough money. My son went to work for a cosmetic company here. Well, first he went to work for Avis out at the airport to rent cars. My wife would then become a counter agent at Avis too. And of course she had to work weekends and work from 6 o'clock to 2 o'clock in the morning. And so I would make food for everybody, pack their lunches, drive them to work because we were borrowing a car. I had to drive them to work, come back home. And at the time we started making this water because people wanted it. So I would make some water, ship it out, cut the boxes. We packaged everything in ball jars, quart ball jars. I would cut the inserts, put it in, ship a couple packages out, make dinner, run back, get my wife and my son, come back home. Then my daughter finally got one, so we could actually move into a small house that we could afford for $800-900 a month. And things just kept growing a little bit. And some people here that had some extreme health problems found out about our water and wanted to start to use our water here. So that business started growing. It was all out of our garage. And anytime we had extra money, we would use that to apply for it. We were trying to feed 5 people off of about $600 a month total for all our food bills. So if you figure that out, that's about $110. What was it? Maybe $120 a month for us, for each individual person. So that worked out, so $4 per day. So I had to make sure that each meal was about $1.25. So for about 2 to 3 years, our allocation was, per meal was $1.25. And I got pretty good at it. A lot of canned beans, stuff like that. And then we would, look for sales, 20 cans for $1, type of stuff. So I got good. I could feed people relatively good for about $1 a meal, $1.25 a meal. Of course, we didn't go out. I mean, if you went out, you could blow 30% of your budget on one meal. So we ate at home. So we kept this going out of our garage, and eventually we were selling enough of the water that we moved into a larger house where everybody actually got their own bedroom, which was nice. And I made another couple of machines. That worked out. Moved into another house that was a little bit nicer. We were able to buy a car. And eventually my wife quit and came to work for us because we were getting so busy. And then my son quit to help us because we were growing even further. Then about 3 years ago, we moved into I'm trying to remember, it was about a 3,000 square foot warehouse where we actually made more machines and were shipping more, and actually changed from quart jars into our bottle that we use now. And I remember we ordered our first shipment of these bottles, and there was 804 bottles on a crate, on a pallet. And we bought 4 of those things, and we looked at that and said, how are we ever going to sell that? How are we going to sell 3,200 bottles? And at that time, it looked huge to us. We said, oh my God, that's like 5 years worth of, trying to sell this stuff. And we actually went through that in about 3 months. Wow. It surprised us. And now we get a truckload of these things 50,000 bottles every 2 to 3 months now.
Wow.
So we're going through that quite a bit. So we outgrew that building. We moved into another building here, which is about 14,000 square feet. And we automated some of the process, got an automatic bottling machine. And that's where we are today. So we will, over a period of about 4 years, 5 years, we've gone from, being homeless to where we are today. And so we have, we're very thankful for that. We're very grateful for that. Of course, now that we're starting to show a little bit of success, all the critics are coming out of the wall about things that we have studied. We've gone through studies. We've always put our money back into the business, and we wanted to prove what this water did. We didn't want it to be hearsay. We didn't want to make claims that other people are making just for the sake of selling the water. We have always tried to have integrity. These are glass bottles, which are recyclable. In fact, this bottle is 30% recyclable parts in it right now. They've used 30% of this glass is recycled. The cap is aluminum, it's recyclable. The printing that we use on this, we don't use any paper, we don't use any glue on it. It's a recyclable, non-harmful ink that washes off. And so we've made sure that this is a sustainable product. When we first got into business, everyone said, why are you using glass bottles? Why are you shipping glass bottles? Why don't you go to these plastics? And we said, well, we have problems with plastic. Plastic is not recyclable for the most part. It gets thrown in dumps, and it hangs around for 10,000 years. This glass is basically sand, and in fact, New Zealand has gotten, one of their beer companies have now made it so they make a machine so after you're done drinking your beer in a bar, you walk over and put it in the machine, it grinds it back to sand.
Wow.
The local government comes around, picks up the sand, puts it back on the beach again.
Wow.
And they're building their beaches with it. How sustainable is that? Yeah. And that's what we kind of want to do here. We'd like to start putting some of those machines around so that the people that are done drinking water or beer or anything actually grinds it back up into sand so they can use it for the roads around.
Listening to all of this is so amazing, and several things went through my mind as I was listening to you. Number one, you all know who you are. Going through hardships and coming out the other side lets us know how strong we are, how resourceful we are, and what's of real value. And that's solid. It doesn't make any difference when anybody else says from here on in, you guys know who you are. And that's a phenomenal thing. And the other thing that strikes me also, that ability to make things turn around for yourselves is kind of part of your product, part of your water. I mean, it's kind of the same story. And that being comfortable is probably the worst thing that you can do to yourself, because you forget who you are, you forget how powerful you are, and you forget that you have resources. So your story of your family is really in those bottles of water. And it's one thing. And the thing that also struck me so much is that the integrity runs through everything. And that is something that's irreplaceable. That is probably as valuable as the water.
I totally agree with you. My family's learned a hard lesson, but my children are in their 30s. And I'll tell you, I would put them up against anybody I know in the world. They're the most wonderful children you could ever conceive. Yes, we have our problems. Yes, we argue. Usually we argue because we each hold our own ground for our integrity. We want everything we do to be as perfect and as good as possible. And so everybody has their own little departmental fights. But it's over integrity, to be perfectly honest. You know, about when people should do shipping labels. You know, and my son wants it cut off at a certain time, and my daughter, of course, gets a lot of people complaining to her, and so she, or people that really need the water, so she has to do things at the last time, and she's trying to help people. My son is trying to help people, and there's a little clash there every now and then. But they, you know, compared to their friends that are the same ages that came out of college, got jobs, or making 2 times, 3 times what they're being paid, there's no comparison between the two. My kids can fight adversity and get through it. They don't things get them down. They go around it if they have to, or they go through it if they have to. My wife has learned to go with the flow up and downs. Other people would have been divorced by now. They would have fought over money. They would have fought over this. They would have fought over that. She doesn't get a new dress for Easter. You know, the world's going to end. I don't have a new dress for Easter, you know, type of stuff. That doesn't even bother her anymore. You know, if she has a good car to drive, that's great. If she doesn't, she'll drive a clunker. It drives the same. You know, so we've learned to be able to roll with the punches, and things that were just actually calamity before. Your world is going to come to an end because you can't buy the newest this or that, or you can't look cool like someone else does. Doesn't mean anything anymore. What means something is whether we get up in the morning, we come in, we fight through what we have to do, and we get the product out to help people. And that's the bottom line. Everybody here and everyone in this company now, we have 12 employees. Everybody wants to make sure that that product gets out the door. And that is the biggest thing, because they see people who come in who have had problems that no longer have problems. They've seen people on their deathbeds get up and be able to walk away. They've seen people with extreme exposure to radiation because of nuclear accident, told that they were going to die, who is 8 years down the road or 7 years down the road from that nuclear accident, just get his child married off.
Wow.
You know, and doing healthy and taking trips again and not laying there on a deathbed. They've all seen that, and they're all dedicated to that. And of course, everybody here drinks this water. That's one of the perks of it. And it's like when you drink this water, your mind flips and opens up. The fog disappears from you, and you can say, wait a minute, what was I doing? Why was I selling myself out for something that didn't matter? So yeah, the experience has been great. It's been tough. Would I go through it again? Yeah, I would go through it again to get to where I am now. Would I sell out? No, I don't think I would. Even if someone offered me 10 times in a much cushier job, I would still go down the same road that we've gone down now. And I think I can say that for everybody. I mean, there's periods where, they wish they had, my son still lives with us. He wishes he had his own place. My daughter lives in an apartment. She wishes she could afford a house. But you know what? They get up every morning. They put that aside. They come in. They do their job, and they help people. And that means more than anything. To me, to them, to the community, to the people they help.
So you're also building a new model of business, a model of consciousness in business. So you're doing several things. And the other thing that kind of flitted through my mind as you were talking before is about the disagreements. how wonderful that you're in a community of people where you can speak up and can disagree. That's critical to things working. So, I mean, there's so many things that I admire about all of you with this, and it's so inspiring, and everybody listening to this interview is going to be inspired that there is something more than money. And the other piece, I think, is when you stick at something that has meaning for you, real deep meaning, then the resources will come. And they might not look like what they might have been if you had sold out, but they're there, and you obviously all are thriving, and you're obviously going to be healthy. So I will be touting Divinia Water to everybody, and myself included. And if I hear of anybody who's really ill, I will tell them that they need to order Divinia. So,
terrific, thank you.
this is, Stephen, I can't tell you what you've done for me this morning. I can't tell you what you've done for everybody else who's going to listen to this. This is amazing. I want to stay in touch and kind of watch what you guys are doing next, because I know it's going to matter so much. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for who you all are, and for creating a company that matters, that is doing something, not just making money, is doing something that is helping people. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I could not have done it without my family. They've been my backbone.
Sure, sure. But you're all kind of integrated in that system of integrity. So,
For better or worse.
well, yes and no, but how wonderful that you're smiling now. You know what I mean? So thank you again. This has been amazing. And thank you for the water for Divinia that's actually healing people.
Thank you.
Thank you to our listeners for joining us. I'm your host, Diane J. Shaver, inviting you to be with us again when I interview another person who's decided to do something to make this a better world. And remember, all it takes is one person, one decision, one commitment. You've got a world changer, and everybody has that power within them. So one day I'll be interviewing you, and I hope that our guests have inspired you. So please check out our interviews at www.transformationspodcast.com and watch for upcoming events featuring world changers. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.